Hello, this is Larry the Male Lesbian on No Laws TV, live on ZBN.
That male lesbian guy,
Why do all the girls have like pink stuff and all the boys have like different color stuff?
Hello, welcome everybody to No Laws TV, and this is Larry the Male Lesbian with you once again. On today's show, we will be talking with Mark from Biotexture Training. Now, this show is about doing. That's my niche here, is I want to show activity. I want to show you doing things. People say, well, Zeitgeist Movement, that's a great idea, but what do you actually do? And, the big charge against is, oh, you guys just sit around and talk all the time, and you think up all these ideas like a bunch of philosophers, but what are you actually doing? Well, I'm going to give some concrete examples of things that are actually being done, things that can be done, should be done. And I'm going to be participating in some of that doing. Now, obviously we know about technology and dynamic equilibrium and all these great things, but what can we do ourselves in our own lives right now to get as close to a resource-based economy as we possibly can and lead by example in our leaderless movement? So on this show, we're going to be talking a lot about transition ideas, and we're going to be talking a lot about things that you can actually do to free yourself from the system as it is today, to be able to retreat to the frontier, if you will. So along these lines are some ideas like hackerspaces. So I'm going to be doing some shows on hackerspaces, what that means, and what people are doing as far as creating these technologies that can free us from, our labor capitalist system. And also we're going to be talking to, Mark from Biotexture about how we can grow our own food in a sustainable and labor unintensive way. And also, I'm going to present a few of my own personal transition ideas, diminishing work week, and also retrofitting a mall. Now, that's going to be a whole episode all on its own, the retrofitting a mall episode. But stay tuned for that one because I've got a pretty good idea, pretty good plan that you're going to be interested in. So, again, this show is about doing, and so here we go. Let's do it. So, I am here with Steve from the Hattiesburg, Mississippi Zeitgeist chapter. And so, Steve, tomorrow, that would be Friday, the 27th of January, is that correct?
27th, that's correct.
Okay. You are going to be having an event at your home, and can you tell us something about that?
Yeah, tomorrow night I'm going to be hosting a Mississippi State meeting for the Zeitgeist Movement. where we're going to touch on several issues from, the monetary system, resource-based economy, things we can do to transition into a resource-based economy on our own that we're capable of that are cheap and efficient. Also, just global, work towards awareness in the local community, and try to get some out-of-state support as well. So I'll be seeing you here also.
Okay, yeah, that is the main idea behind this. I've gone as far west as Austin, and I went to the Zeit House over there, and now I'm going to go as far east as Hattiesburg. And here in New Orleans, it's only just me and maybe like a couple of extra active members here in the New Orleans area. So when we go out and do events, it's typically just me and, say, one other person. And if it's just one or two people, it's pretty, easy to dismiss by most people. So as some, crazy loon faction or whatever. But when you have, say, 5, 10, 20 people together, people say, whoa, what's going on? What is that? That's a real movement there. And so in some of these places, especially rural areas and small towns where it's just one of you out there, by yourself, and you feel kind of crazy out there with a sign on the corner by yourself, if we were to actually aggregate all those people over a state or two or three or four and put them all in one location, we could actually show some significant numbers and really gain attention. So that's why I'm having Zeitgeist Mardi Gras here at the Zeit House, New Orleans, and I've posted that event on the internet. If you go to Zeitgeist New Orleans Facebook page, or just go to maillesbien.org for a quick click through from there, a quick link to there, then you can get all the details, sign up, and come visit us here in New Orleans. We're all going to meet at my place and then take a short streetcar ride downtown, hand out some flyers and DVDs. It should be a good time had by all. So come on by. And but tomorrow we're going to be in Hattiesburg doing this in Hattiesburg. So that's going to be the first point of convergence. And then eventually when people in our local areas see these numbers, they're going to say, wow, that's a big group here. And then they will make it so.
That's right. Now, like you were saying, it's people tend to be very initially have an emotional response and are very judgmental when you approach them by yourself. But whenever you see a group of people that you can relate to at least one of, I'm certain of it, that you're more willing to listen to the information that's being provided and not be distracted by what your image of the person themselves. And luckily here in Mississippi, we've been able to reach out to people. At least I have, very easily, in the sense that people tended to be, misguided on and misinformed about what it is their role in the world, and they have the time here, to get involved in something like this. And so that's why I think things have been working out so well. And I can't wait to see you tomorrow and at Zeitgeist Mardi Gras, and hopefully we can get us both state banners, so we can show the people how much we're putting into this, and hopefully get something back in return, get some more membership, some more people working aside us for sustainability.
Yeah, I had Bob and Ricky and Oldus and a couple other guys stop in from the California chapters when they were going across the nation. They were on their way to the Venus Project, and they stopped by here on the way to the Venus Project and on the way back. And on the way back, they actually had a a banner that he said cost about, I don't know, $70, something like that, at a local print shop. And there's also, services online for that as well. But they said it was about $70, and it was this big long banner that two people would hold on either end, and it would be as long as, say, it'd be as wider than, say, like a car length. And it really drew a lot of attention, with all of us with our T-shirts out there and a big banner. People were like, well, who are you and what is this? And that's basically what we need to do, because these ideas are infectious. They pretty much sell themselves. All we really need is attention span. We need people to pay attention to us long enough to receive the information. And with so many things competing for their attention, you know, television and sports and politics and everything else, and of course, you know, having to work 2, 3, 4 jobs to make ends meet, people's attention is, you know, somewhat hard to come by. So if a banner does it, you know, if getting out on the street does it, whatever it does, we need to get people's attention. So we're planning on doing that. Now the other thing is that I was talking with you about perhaps doing some role playing, because you say you have a certain technique when it comes to meeting people in social arenas, say like pubs or whatever, you know, where politics and things like that are brought up on occasion, and people, you know, obviously in the bars a lot of times people sit there and they, you know, cry about what's wrong with the world and have no solutions. They're just like, you know, what are you going to do? You know, the world's so I guess I'll drink another beer, you know, and forget about it. And then you
have the biggest mouth in the South. They want to just be talking for no reason whatsoever. They're just debating for no reason whatsoever. A lot of people tend to debate whenever you're out at the local pubs and talk about things they're not too positive about. They, you know, I guess opinions that don't have any, you know, reference to any tangible evidence or fact or anything like that. So I deal with that on a regular basis. But it's bump and go. It's bump and go.
You know, I think that some of these people would really enjoy having some substance to put into their arguments and things. So, you know, one of the things that I want to do, one of my main activities is to reach across the aisle, if there is such an aisle, to, you know, to other people that we've been divided against, you know, conservatives versus liberals and so on and so forth, because it seems that some people, you know, they pick up these talking points and they like to, you know, feel like they're an expert about something, and these talking points help them do that. But when you challenge those talking points, they don't have anything to back it up with, and they're presented with a superior argument, especially in this age right now, it's a great disillusion. I mean, people believe, you know, America's #1 and apple pie and all this kind of stuff, and it's just immutable, and that's just how it is, and capitalism forever and so on. But people are really waking up from that dream, and to arm people with really good arguments, I think that some of these people would really enjoy that, would really enjoy maybe even talking to themselves, you know.
That's where it's really got to take a big part. Is you got to be able to question yourself and your indoctrination and what it is that you think. And once you can do that, you can start to question everything else, and, you know, and try to understand people for what they're actually saying.
Yes, indeed. So we're going to be doing some of that tomorrow, and we're going to, you know, figure out how to, you know, break through the ice. There's going to be some people there who are familiar with the information already, and they just want to know, well, how do you actually talk to people without them shutting down on you? And then there's going to be other people there who are just brand new to the situation, and they're going to find out, you know, the information for the first time. So there's going to be different groups, and I'm really excited about it. So that's going to be tomorrow, January 27th, and then the next event after that, I suppose, will be Mardi Gras, which is the 18th through the 21st. And then your next meeting will be in February, I guess, on the 27th as well. Is that correct?
That's correct. And, you know, like we're pretty much beyond that zeitgeist movement point. I'm not trying to say we're beyond the zeitgeist, because it is a time, but, you know, people are not just, you know, wanting to talk and share information. They're wanting to actually get involved and do things. Like, where can we start? Where can we start to make that transition?
Yeah, and that's what this show is about specifically, is doing. I have many ideas and plans for doing and examples of doing rather than just talking about it. So you're going to see that for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, right here on No Laws TV and on all the other Zeitgeist programs. All right, great. Well, it was great talking with you, Steve, and I will see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, man. Come early.
All right. See you then.
Later, brother.
Hello, this is Larry and Mark from Biotecture Training. And we're here in Austin. This is the state park known as McKinney Falls State Park.
It's a beautiful day.
Yeah. And this is kind of, just beyond the tree line over there, there's a whole city basically that surrounds this place. So this is kind of like a Jacques Fresco type idea of having, you know, green spaces within a cityscape that where you can't really see the city, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And you know how he has like his designs for his cities where even the houses don't even see each other. All they see when you look out the windows is just natural stuff, even though they're right in the middle of the city.
Yeah.
So I figured this would be a good location to talk about what Mark's into. Now, you said you went to a training?
Yeah, we went to Earthship Biotecture Academy. They had an intern program for a long time. They still run it, and it wasn't as extensive as they had hoped it would be. And so what they did is they put together a training course, and they had 1,000 applicants. And for the first training course, they had I mean, it was kind of overwhelming. They picked 20 of us, and it was a 2-month training course. It was really intensive. We did a lot of construction work, classes 3 times a week. It was great. We got to spend a lot of time with Mike Reynolds.
Okay. And now I also know that there's another biotecture.org, but you were saying that that's not affiliated with what you did?
No, it's not. No one. Okay, so the term biotecture is just it's architecture, including greenery and life. Basically, it's got a broad definition now because it's changed a little bit. It was originally coined back by another guy 30 or 40 years ago, and it was originally planting inside of buildings, incorporating them into office buildings. Now it's more of a round terminology, meaning architecture that is about life, which includes plant life and animal life and other things, and supports all of those lives. Now, biotecture.org or .com, I'm not sure who they are, it's branched off in a lot of different ways. So a lot of different people are doing this. Not all of them are affiliated with Earthship Biotecture. Some of them are.
Well, you know, when it comes to the Zeitgeist movement and the resource-based economy, apparently a lot of people have been borrowing that term, and there's a lot of splinter, break-off groups. You were saying a moment ago that that you kind of are a fan of capitalism. That you were saying like even disaster capitalism is the market speaking. How do you reconcile those beliefs with the resource-based economy?
Well, it's difficult. First, sustainability to me is living without the system. So we can get to a point where, or we are at a point now, where we can live without the system's interference. The way the economy is run with capitalism, the money system itself is doomed to fail. It was designed to fail. It's finite. It's going to fail. But capitalism itself, in itself, isn't wrong. What's attached itself to capitalism, what I believe, is what's wrong. So, you know, corporatism and some of the other things that have been added to it kill it. Now, not every aspect of capitalism is good. You know,
Right.
yeah, there's some very serious things wrong with it, and that's where I think we absolutely are going to see the death of capitalism because of what's attached itself to it, and sustainability is what needs to take its place. Otherwise, we go into anarchy, because with the death of capitalism, we either go into other government systems that don't work, like socialism or communism, which are always failing. You know, what is it? The average government in Europe right now lasts less than 5 years because they're doing these socialist systems and they continually are failing and being reinstalled and redone. So,
How about a no confidence vote in Parliament? Is that what you mean?
yeah, well, yeah, that did happen just recently, but some of the socialist systems are constantly revolving out in new. They're trying different things to make it sure that they can survive, but they're not making it.
Well, you know, in the United States, it's always been a mixture of systems. It's always been a mixture of, you know, pure capitalism. For the brief moments in history when it did exist, it was a total disaster and was immediately saved by socialism. It was immediate because in pure capitalism, basically what you have is you have people who become so fabulously wealthy that they gain all the power, they consolidate all the power, and it doesn't work for the common person. And if you know if they're not taxed heavily, and that wealth isn't redistributed, then it becomes an oligarchy and eventually a monopoly.
From my understanding, the way that they circumvented that was by installing the public education system, which
Which is now being undermined by capitalism.
Well, but it's also being undermined by socialism. From the top down, you know, starting in the 70s, going all the way down, a movement was installed into. Have you read the book, The Dumbing Down of America?
Well, I agree with the title, but I haven't actually read the book.
Well, it's a systematic principle by which they've literally infiltrated all of the schools and dumbed us down. And it's actually, at this point, it's the dumbing down of the world. We're coming to a point where the world is starting to, you know, be affected by, you know, we were the freedom of hope. You know, we were the shining light on the hill. We've done our government has done tons of things that it shouldn't have, and interfered where it shouldn't have, and that's caused all kinds of problems. But as we got knocked down the pegs, so has the world gotten knocked down the pegs. So we're seeing, you know, some countries, education's through the roof, but in others it's worthless. And here it's basically worthless. We're not training our kids and people in college to be successful.
Well, you know, knowledge is power, and so the idea that the elites would ever share that power has been a long, hard slog, as Rumsfeld would put it, over, you know, many generations, over a long period of time. And, you know, ever since this form of government in the United States was formed, the old elites, the old feudalism, you know, that old money has been fighting it tooth and nail the whole time. And of course their kids go to boarding school, and they're got information just pumped into their head all day. They got a class size of 1, you know, they got personal tutors, you know, whereas the rest of us, we have this constantly growing class size and teaching to the test. And yeah, you're right, it's to dumb people down. And also another thing that they do to us is they put us in corners. They divide our minds into a dichotomy of only black and white thinking, so that if I say, gee, I don't like capitalism, I'm immediately labeled a communist, as if that's the only other choice, you know?
Yeah, I agree. They're intentionally dividing us in every way possible. Right wing, left wing, I mean, we're the whole bird. It's an American eagle, you know? It's the religious divisions and all of the other things that have happened, you know, socioeconomically. We're seeing division placed as many places as we can. Race relations is, you know, it's bad. And we as a people need to come together. And for the sole purpose of survival. It's the only way we're going to survive is if we pull together into community. Small community was the antithesis of centralized banking. Before centralized banking, you had recessions all the time. They happened all the time, but they recovered quickly because each individual community or city had its own economy and would recover quickly. But when you centralize the banking, then everybody is subject to what happens under that one bank. And that's the money system itself is probably the most dangerous thing that's going on right now. There's a lot of things changing politically and for our rights. You know, we're losing our rights left and right now. But the money system is probably the worst. And that's why we're trying to teach sustainability. Get away from the money system. There's no need for it. We don't have to have it. And we can accomplish these things tomorrow, right now, today. So.
Okay, well, that's what we're here to talk about. Yeah, I know that the reason why capitalism served us well in the past was because we used to have a frontier society.
Yes.
so that if things didn't work out for you in the city, you know, if you felt like you were being exploited and you didn't want to work in the factory anymore, you could always go back to the land. You could always provide for yourself. You know, the money system's not working for me, so I'll go grow my own food. I'll go hunt my own food. I'll, you know, stake out a homestead for myself. And when capitalism, you know, gets itself together and is more attractive than what I'm doing out in the wilderness, well, then I'll come revisit it. But I always have that release valve that I can always leave the system. Whereas now, for most people, it's just simply not an option. But you're saying that it can be an option, like even in an urban situation.
Even in an urban situation, what we're looking for is setting people free from the system. It can be done, and it can be done very cheaply, and it can be done very effectively. We have the technology today. It's not something that's off in the future. We don't have to wait for it to come. And a big part of waiting for it to come is, in my mind, it's very misleading. Waiting for technologies to come to save us from the problems that we have today is a mistake. The problems we have today, everybody has. But if you can imagine never paying an electrical bill ever again. I mean, never paying a water or sewer bill, never having to go to the grocery store to get your fresh vegetables. You know, there are methods for fuel, burning wood chips through downdraft gasifiers. You can drive your vehicle off of wood smoke. You know, vertical axis wind turbines create electricity at low wind speeds. You start adding up all of the things that we have available to us now. And with the structures that we have, based off of several different men's work that has accumulated to this point, we can build a building that stays at 70 degrees no matter how cold or warm it is outside. And then provides for all of these needs. So wherever your setting is, it doesn't matter. You put this building down, and you're instantly off the grid. You're off the system. We call them off-grid houses, but really what it is it's out of the system houses. And it's, you know, you're still going to have some basic needs provided for. But that's where the community comes in. As everybody makes a community effort, those basic needs, like toilet paper or shampoo and toothpaste and things like that, those things can be provided for in a community base, as where if you are dependent on going to the grocery store to buy your toothpaste, you're going to be subject to whatever that person puts in that toothpaste, which at this point is fluoride, which has categorically been proven, now to be toxic waste. In our water and in our toothpaste, it actually kills our teeth. It's not good for us.
Join the conversation there, Tina?
Cheering for anti-fluoride. I am very anti-fluoride and very anti-chlorine in our water. You can filter water. It doesn't have to have those things in it. It's raining right now. If you collected the rainwater off of this tent and another 30 or 40 square feet, you could fill a 55-gallon barrel in an hour. What's the point of then having somebody's water line running to your house feeding you toxic chemicals? It just doesn't make sense.
What about the mercury in the water?
Mercury can be filtered out. Heavy metals can be removed. You know, charcoal-based filters and all those other things, you can get it all out. There isn't, to my knowledge, I don't believe that there is a lot of mercury in rainwater, but I could be wrong on that.
Well, yeah, the way I understand it is we just did some research on, what is it called, red something krill. Anyway, there's this supplement, it's a krill oil. Mega Red, yeah, I think is the brand name. Anyways, krill oil. And krill are these little, you know, crustacean-like fish that live in the Arctic Ocean. And they, you know, produce a lot of DHA, you know, omega-3 fatty acids and so on.
Good stuff.
Good stuff. Now, apparently, the krill oil doesn't go through the same rigorous what do they call it? Spectrograph, where they, you know,
Spectroanalysis.
Spectroanalysis. There you go.
Yes.
it doesn't go through that same rigorous process where it's distilled out and you get all the mercury and pollution out of it like you do in most fish oil supplements, which, you know, is kind of a heavy-handed approach, but it's necessary because of the amount of mercury of all the coal-burning plants around the world.
Yeah.
And the idea was is that since it's in the Arctic, that the coal-fired soot and things wouldn't get that far north. But they have done some spectral analysis on it recently and found that, yes, indeed, it is also reaching there as well. There's pretty much nowhere on the planet where you can get away from mercury.
Yeah, mercury is everywhere and is poison, and we're killing our oceans. It's just quite that simple. There's no way around that.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, but like for instance, you know, a biosand water filter, you can add charcoal layers and crushed shell layers to that. That will filter out heavy metals. Charcoal will filter out heavy metals. You have to filter it very well, though.
That reminds me of a show that we watched recently. It's a reality show called The Colony. I don't know if have you seen it?
I've seen both seasons, yes.
You have, okay. So yeah, so they would take water from the L.A. River and filter it and drink it, and apparently it was okay.
Yeah, a biosand water filter is probably the simplest way to filter sand. 55-gallon trash can, fill it 3/4 the way full of sand, pour the dirty water in the top, filter it out of the bottom, and you have clean water. If you don't think it's clean enough, filter it again. But, I mean, this is disgusting, but you can pee in the top of it, and it comes out water at the bottom.
Well, there's actually some alternative health advocates who actually advocate drinking your own urine.
That's not my thing.
Well, apparently it's sterile as long as there's no bladder infection and so on.
Yeah, it's sterile for a few minutes. It quickly starts gathering bacteria after that. Now, the Native Americans used to use it to clean babies off when they were born, clean their eyes out and things like that. It is a sterile thing. But it, you know, 2-3 minutes tops, and then it's not sterile anymore.
So it has to be...
Yeah, fresh.
Fresh.
Okay.
It's kind of veered there a little bit, but yeah. So, you know, as far as like you were saying, like doing it now, and we don't have to. It would be a mistake to wait for technologies, but obviously we don't have to wait because they already exist.
Yeah.
But really, it's the system that's stopping it. So one of the things that really concerns me is that, let's say you get a community, a colony together, you know, and now I know we had this conversation earlier where you say, well, it wouldn't be like communism because not everything would be shared. And I would agree with that. You wouldn't share your toothbrush, you know, you wouldn't share your earphones and, you know, things like that, your own domicile, you know, you have your own space.
Private property rights.
Right.
Exactly.
But then there would also be communal property, like, say, tools and roads and maybe transportation system, that kind of thing. But one of the problems that people are having now is that they'll go and they try to live on the land, and they have rights, they have surface rights, but they don't have mineral rights. So then, what do you know? A fracking company comes in on your land. I mean, it doesn't even have to be adjacent to your land. It could be on your land, and start drilling for fracking for natural gas, and you can't say anything about it. You can't go out there with your shotgun and say, look, you're on my land, to get out of here. And they're like, nope, we own the mineral rights, and that undoes, that overseeds or precedes your surface rights.
Well, the reality is none of us in the United States own our land.
Okay.
But you can get a land patent. Once you get a land patent, then people can't touch anything, whether they own the property rights or not. So there are legal avenues around those type of things. You know,
the legal avenues is going to be involving the system, which isn't necessarily going to be working for your benefit.
Well, actually, see, the way that I see it is that when you withdraw from the system, you become free. We are all free people. It's just by choice and consent that we choose not to be free. The Americans have become apathetic. We have become an apathetic race. We are dependent on a system to take care of us. It provides everything for us. It provides our food, it provides our water, it provides our electricity. And we depend on this so much that we've lost our freedom. We've become enslaved to it.
Mm-hmm.
But you withdraw from the system. Then you can use the system as you see fit. It's not being dependent on it, but it's then stepping back and using the system as a tool. Well, should I go get a part-time job? Well, yeah, I mean, you can work for 3 months out of the year and provide for all of your needs. If you don't have to pay for anything else, you don't have a mortgage, you don't have, food bills, you don't have all of these other things, you start, well, what am I going to do with my free time? Well, I mean, if your pursuit is to become wealthy, you could do that. But I would prefer people not to have the pursuit to become wealthy, because money and an understanding of money, once you understand it, it's fleeting. Right now, if you have money in the bank, it's worth 3% less, every day now? Or every month? It's growing. Inflation is growing rapidly. So when you're earning an interest rate of 1.5%, but inflation is at 3%, then you're way behind. And I think that number at 3% is way low. I mean, because if you just watch the price of food go up, the National Association for Inflation stated last year that by the middle of 2012, a box of cereal could cost $24. So if you just go by the price of inflation on food, that's a serious problem. Can you imagine what would happen if gasoline hit $11 a gallon?
Yeah, it'd be wonderful, because then we would finally convert to electric cars and use wind power and stuff like that.
But can you imagine how many people would be starving? See, the thing is it's great to think off. This is one of the problems with thinking off, into the future. Wait till the system collapses, and then we can do all these great things.
Mm-hmm.
Wait till the demand is there, and then we can do those great things. Problem with that is we're all going to be hurting when that happens.
Yeah.
I mean,
transition is
the transition is going to be hard, and so the more of us there are out there who are aware of sustainability, who can provide for this. Right now, if I had 10 acres of land in Texas and I built an aquaponics farm that was 10 acres, I could feed half the city of Dallas off of 10 acres. Half the city of Dallas.
Yeah, that reminds me of The Vertical Farm, which is a book that's out right now by DePalmier, who says that he can feed 100,000 people with just 2 city blocks, year-round, all food demands, including all fruit and meat and everything.
Yeah, there's a farm that's doing this right now. Growing Power Science out of Milwaukee has 3 acres. They produce 1 million pounds of food a year off of 3 acres. Fish, protein, they have goats and chickens. They have a full aquaponic system growing, and they produce everything that's necessary for a human diet, or pretty close to. I mean, you add a couple more acres to that, and what have you done? I mean, you just created enough food source to, let's say the average person eats 1,000 pounds of food a year. 1,000 pounds of food, 1 million pounds of food off of 3 acres. I mean, do the math. There's, billions of acres of land here in the United States? Mm-hmm. We could solve the world's food problem with a small investment.
Well, in fact, we've done it before. I mean, revolutions in agriculture have happened in the past. Obviously, we're in the midst of the chemical farming revolution, but when that first happened, we pretty much were able to feed the world from the U.S.
Yeah.
And this is another level of that. Now, just for clarification for our viewers and listeners,
what is aquaponics?
What is aquaponics? I know it has to do with fish tanks hooked to...
Okay. All right. I'm going to give you the best breakdown I possibly can. Fish produce waste. They produce ammonia and fish feces. Both of those things are extremely valuable in a stream cycle. Aquaponics is the replication of a stream or a river. What you do is you take the fish waste, you pump it out into grow beds with media. No dirt, just rocks. The bacteria naturally breaks down the ammonia 2 stages and converts it into nitrates.
Okay.
That plants eat. Oh, we got a phone call.
Okay.
The product of which is rampant plant growth. It takes a system about 12 months to mature. Once it matures, you're looking at tomato plants that produce for years at a time, not die, but can grow for a long period continuously and produce more and more and more tomatoes. They flower continually. It's important to have it in a greenhouse setting so that you can control the environment, so that you can keep the temperature in a range that both the fish and the plants will enjoy. I believe personally in putting fish in ponds in the ground. The ground is a stable mass. At 5 foot deep, it is 58 degrees. Cold water fish, 58 degrees, perfect. And then the gravel, the plants filter the water for the fish. The water goes right back to the fish. The fish mess up the water goes back to the plants, and it just keeps cycling like that. And the result is beautiful fish, rampant plant growth. And we've taken it even a step further than that. You find out the dietary need of what fish that you're growing, like, say, for instance, rainbow trout. There are 2 roaches that you can buy off the internet, shipped to your house, that will completely fill the dietary needs of your fish. And then you take whatever compost you have, you feed your raw meat and junk to roaches. They eat it, and then they rampantly grow. You farm them. You feed them to your fish. Somebody really wants to get a hold of you.
Okay. So,
so you really make a sustainable cycle. I mean, the input into this is electricity, which can be solar or wind powered. You're running a pump, air pump, causing water flow, and that's it. There's sunlight, it's free.
Yeah, the whole system, the energy basically all comes from the sun.
Yes.
Yeah, and even wind power is really solar power.
Yeah.
And even coal and oil
are solar power.
Yeah, are stored solar power.
Yeah.
The only thing that's you arguably could say would be geothermal. However,
that's still
if you go back far enough, all matter was basically created in sun furnaces. Ben McLeish. All right, he was saying that in our current system, that basically that when you do an analysis of all the energy and materials that we're currently using, that only about 1% of those materials and energy are actually being used for anything good or productive, Yeah. And so that if we were even just to go to 2% of what we're currently using right now, that would basically double the resources of the world.
Yes.
And it's quite possible to go to as much as 70%. With
I think we can do better than that.
Right.
See, okay, let me break this down for you. The structures we build are mostly built out of recycled materials. Okay. Through the process, we still have to use concrete and rebar because those are the most permanent building materials you can get. And we build with as permanent as you can get for the sole purpose of, well, we're trying to build a structure that lasts for hundreds of years, not something that's disposable that gets thrown away. So when we use tires, rammed earth tires are by far one of the best building materials I've ever seen. I've been in construction a long time. They will last longer than 40,000 years. You're looking at something rammed with earth that's encased in a concrete wall that provides a bulletproof structure that's hurricane resistant and earthquake resistant. Then your house, once it's built, is basically a carbon neutral environment. Carbon neutral, zero. I mean, zero carbon expenditure coming into the house. You don't have to absorb energy from anything else other than the sun. We add thermal mass rocket heaters for just in case there's a really cold snap, but it uses much less fuel than a normal wood-burning stove or anything of that nature. Solar hot water heaters, solar food dehydrators, wind power, solar power electricity. You start adding all these things up, man, it becomes really inexpensive to live.
Have you seen the solar ovens?
Yeah.
That they
Yeah.
and they're made out of cardboard, and they have like a
Just a reflective surface on
reflective surface on the inside.
You can
yes.
go a step even further than that, and you can use Fresnel lenses, which is just a
Yes.
giant magnifying lens, and heat up black sheets of metal and cook straight off of them. As long as the sun is out, you have an inexhaustible source of power.
Mhm.
You know, the sun is not very out today, but at the same time, it's still, what is it, 65, 70 degrees? Well, maybe not that warm, but it's still warm here.
Mhm.
And you know, you go down into the ground and you maintain the warmth of the ground plus the warmth of the sun that it gives, and you can keep a building at a great temperature without any heating.
Geothermally sunk heat pump is what you're talking about, right?
No,
No?
it's just, see, the thing is what people don't recognize is that the Earth itself is warm. I mean, at 5 foot deep, it's 58 degrees. As you come to the surface, it gets warmer or colder depending on the environment above it. But
Well, isn't that the average temperature for that latitude, though?
no. Ooh, good job.
Yeah, here. Here's an example of getting off the grid right here.
Organic growing.
We grew this. We grew this in the city in New Orleans on a 1/10 of an acre. We have
A tenth of an acre.
A 1/10 of an acre, and in later episodes you'll see my farm. And what's the next step, Tina? What are we getting ready to do?
Chickens.
Oh, we're buying chickens.
Chickens or ducks?
Chickens.
Yeah.
We're
I
getting
love
chickens.
Dumb creatures, but.
Well, we're also vegetarians. So
Oh.
it's like I hate super eggs. It's there. And then the manure, our garden. I mean, it's just our worm farm. The chickens are a win-win-win-win-win all the way around.
Yeah, chickens are a win-win-win. I agree with that. So are goats.
Mhm.
There's no need for cattle. We can do everything we need with chickens, goats, and fish.
There's actually a new charity out now called Goats for the Old Goat, where people are buying goats for people in third world countries because they basically increase their wealth, like, you know,
Exponentially.
Yeah, in a tremendous amount. And there's actually this one service that's, and I wish I had the website for you right now, but there's this one service where you can actually take the price of something you would have spent for a gift, you know, for like, say, like a robotic toy or something for a kid, and buy a goat in the kid's name, because ultimately the kid's going to get bored with the toy in about 2 weeks, you know, but the goat's going to go on for, you know, years into the future.
Yeah.
And it instills, you know, values in the
Hartford or something like that, isn't it? H-E-I-T something. Can't
yeah,
remember.
we'll have to get that for you later.
Yeah.
Right, so in the Jacques Fresco world, obviously we do, you know, have a lot of technology, including robots and stuff that would tend gardens to make sure that there's no missed opportunity ever.
Yeah.
Now, insects are a type of natural robot, if you will.
Yeah.
And you were saying that you can basically rebuild a biosphere from
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, I mean, a greenhouse is a controlled environment. You can add, you know, lizards, tree frogs, ladybugs, aggressive predator insects that can do all of the natural pest control that you would ever need. If you have some problems with slugs, build a pile of rocks, and you'll get gardener snakes. And gardener snakes, well, some gardener snakes eat slugs. Some don't. You want to check the gardener snakes in your area. But there's a lot of different steps that we can do that we don't have to use any pesticides whatsoever. You don't have to have any fertilizers. You're not adding anything man-made to the system. All you're doing is moving water and feeding fish. And then cycling your plants. And it takes some planning. But you can grow. I mean, talk about healthy, nutritious food. The food that we're getting from our farms now is so depleted compared to what we had 50 years ago or 100 years ago. Like, for instance, spinach is considered to be one of the best, but is terrible. I mean, it's 500 times less valuable than it was 50 years ago.
Oh, because of chemical farming, you mean?
Because of chemical farming and because of soil depletion. But you know, you can grow anything you want in aquaponics. Potatoes, carrots, onions, garlic, any of the greens, any of the fruits. You can grow trees in aquaponics. You want to keep them small. You know, you limit the root size. You
Bonsai trees?
Well, I mean, you can grow avocado trees. You can grow coconut trees. You can grow
Oranges?
Oranges, lemons, lime.
Yeah.
I dare say you can grow coffee. You can grow wheat and barley. You can grow anything you want. You can have a full, complete system
Yeah.
off of one aquaponics garden.
And probably some medicinal herbs, too.
Oh, yeah. Yes. You know, each thing needs to be tailored to specifically, but and you can adjust your tailoring as needed. But
Well, the way I understand the Palmiere's idea and Jacques Fresco's idea is that you would have compartmentalization and you would have quarantines, basically, where you may walk from tropical room to tundra room or something. Is that would it be like that? But you somehow you have to balance it without using air conditioning and.
yeah, I disagree with completely quarantining systems because the environment is here because it was already here. There's no need to quarantine it.
Well, but if you have, say,
yeah, I understand.
a tropical plant and then a plant that grows in, you know, like a winter squash or something.
Yeah.
Obviously, I guess some things would have to be seasonal.
Yes. I mean, and you grow, like for instance, where we're at in Texas, we found what I consider to be the perfect environment for this. There's 2 grow seasons in Texas, and that's not even including if you have a greenhouse with an aquaponics system with a thermal mass rocket heater heating the ground as opposed to heating the air. You know, that's heating the air is how all of our heating systems are based, and that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of.
It's inefficient, yeah.
It's super inefficient. Heat the mass, not the air.
There's a flooring company actually that will put heating elements underneath your wood or tile floor, so when you get out of bed in the morning, the floor's nice and warm, and it warms the rest of the house.
Yeah, it warms the rest of the house, and that's the principle that we use with thermal mass rocket heaters. The thermal mass rocket heater burns the wood 99%. There's no smoke left off of it at all. All that's left is steam, and then you run the exhaust vent through the floor, and then it exits out the side of the wall and heats the house that way. So instead of having a centralized heating system that's consuming fuel to pump and heat air, what you're doing is you're heating the mass of a structure, and whatever little fuel you are using to heat the mass of the structure lasts much longer. There's a difference between mass and insulation. Okay, so thermal mass absorbs heat and holds it, or absorbs cold and holds it. Insulation repels heat and cold and keeps whatever's on the other side of it either warm or cold. That's the goal of insulation. With mass, your goal is to absorb as much energy as you can. If you want your room cold, so absorb as much cold as you can, and then the room will stay cold. You know, refrigeration and freezing, we've gotten way away from ice boxes, but ice boxes were brilliant. You know, thick walls, thick insulation to keep the, you know, well, if you start adding mass to that, then the icebox will stay cold for much longer. Like, say, for instance, Earthship Biotecture, they experimented with thermal mass refrigerators. And what they did was they used beer cans, because beer doesn't freeze. Well, it does, but it takes a lot of cold to freeze beer. And so they lined the inside of the refrigerator with beer, and the floor of the refrigerator with beer, and then thick insulation around it. And then when it's cold outside, a fireplace sucks the air from the refrigerator into the fire, feeds the fire, and sucks the cold air down from outside into the refrigerator, freezing everything on the inside or cooling it to the point. And then when it's warm outside, you close the vent at the top, and you're not using your fire, and it stays at a really consistent temperature for a long time because you've cooled the mass and then it's well insulated. So you're using a couple of thermodynamic processes there.
Well, yeah, that reminds me a lot of the, I know in like a lot of desert climates where it gets hot in the day and it gets cold at night.
Yeah.
When it gets cold at night, they actually have these barrels that are 55-gallon drum barrels filled with some kind of liquid like oil or water.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll have a set of sliding glass doors, one on the outside, one on the inside, on both sides of these barrels. And then during the day, they'll have the inside ones closed and like a reflective like curtain put in front of it.
This is thermal mass.
The sun comes in, heats up those barrels all day. Then at night, they open the inside sliding glass doors and they radiate heat that they absorbed all day from the sun.
That is an excellent example of thermal mass. Another one would be really simple, is if anybody's gone swimming at night, right after the sun is set and it starts to get cold outside and you go swimming in the water's still warm.
Mm-hmm.
Because it takes a lot of BTUs of energy to move the thermal mass of water.
Mm-hmm.
To change the temperature of water, it takes a lot of energy.
But there's an inertia there, so
yeah.
It's once something's in motion, it's just as hard to stop it as it was to move it in the first place.
Yes.
Now, but getting back to quarantine, I know there's probably a question in the mind of some of our listeners and viewers that you were talking about roaches, and then you mentioned beer, right? So it
roaches and beer.
Without some sort of quarantine of these elements, and especially if there's an alcoholic in the house,
you can fill them with glycol.
Okay, and they won't drink that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then but then the other thing is like roaches. I mean, a lot of people, they have this really negative connotation. Roaches are pests. They carry disease. It's something you want to get rid of. You got to call it the exterminator immediately. So you were mentioning roaches, but how would you, if you had these roaches and they weren't quarantined, how would you keep them from entering your domicile?
Okay, I may have kind of misrepresented that.
Mm-hmm.
A roach farm, you're going to use plastic containers. You're going to keep your roaches in plastic containers. There are breeds of roaches that can't climb. So because of that, then you can just put a lid on it, put some vents on it, feed them water and food. They become successful. The goal of any living organism on the planet is to become successful, to propagate. Through this, you're keeping roaches alive. And they're fulfilling their food source because they don't live for very long, and so they die. But the protein is still there. Everything that's needed, you feed to your fish. So you're creating a cycle. What you would do is you would have multiple stacks of Tupperware bins with roaches in them, and then as you are ready to harvest, you take the lid off, feed your fish.
Kind of like a worm farm.
Yeah, it's kind of like a worm farm. You can use soldier flies. There's multiple different ways to feed the fish, and fish also eat plant material. So, like for instance, you harvest a stalk of broccoli. You cut the head off. You cut pull the root system out and everything, and you just throw the whole stalk with the leaves right into the pond. And the fish will eat the leaves off, and then you pull the stalk out and you throw it in your compost bin, and you feed your worms with it. And you add your worms to the aquaponics system too, because they thrive in it. They love it. You want to feed them treats like banana peels and things like that.
Add them to it. What does that mean?
They get into the rocks. You put them into the rock, and they, worm castings are highly sought after as far as this goes. But they're perfect for aquaponics. They just move right through the rocks. They eat the organic material, and they produce worm castings, and you're just exponentially adding to the wealth of the system. There's so much good about this. I see no drawbacks whatsoever.
Okay.
The only drawback I can see is the use of electricity to pump water, but we can solve that with solar and wind power. So
yeah,
it's as complete of a system as it can be.
Okay, and so you're saying beyond 70% efficiency. And
beyond.
And right now we're only at 1.
I believe that through the sustainable movement, that we recycle the materials that are around us. Tires, rebar. You tear down a building, it's full of rebar. Tires, rebar, and anything else that you can recycle that goes into a building. We're looking for good stuff, not junk, obviously. And then once it's done, you're looking at a structure that's there for 200 to 300 years. It's not going to go away unless, you know, natural disaster or war or something of that nature happens. But you know, you're looking at a roof that would last 200 years. It would still need some repairs, but you're not re-roofing every 40, 20 years. I've re-roofed houses, man. There's so much waste that's involved with that. And it's a petroleum-based product that just goes back into the landfill that never gets recycled. So you're looking at all of this stuff that you stop waste right there. You stop waste. And then you're living off of the grid, off of the system, and you're no longer producing, you're no longer drawing from the system. The system produces waste. Like, for instance, the electrical system. The electrical system wastes over 50% of the electricity that comes down a large grid system. Small finite grids are the way to go. You can power an individual house and waste very little electricity.
So you're a fan of the smart grid then?
Absolutely.
Aquaponics and a smart grid, just a couple of technologies that can help us transition. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the show. Join us next week as we visit the Zeit House, Austin. See you then.
The old appeals to racial, sexual, and religious chauvinism, to rabid nationalist fervor, are beginning not to work. A new consciousness is developing which sees the Earth as a single organism and recognizes that an organism at war with itself is doomed.